Have you ever gone to start a fire with a match just to have it fizzle out? Or maybe you don't have the proper amount of kindling to get a fire going very easily. Well, today I am going to show you how to make fire starters. These are very economical and easy to make. So I am going to go over all of the items that you will need to make them today. And then at the very end, we are going to do a burn test just to show you how long these actually burn. Now here is an example of what they will look like in the end. And now we are going to go over a list of all the items that are necessary to put these together. So what I like to use on the counter is a piece of aluminum foil with a sheet of wax paper over top of that. This is for when we take and set our egg cartons on top of this. It keeps the wax from penetrating through and getting on your countertop, as well as when you lay any of your utensils down. The wax paper will keep it from sticking to the aluminum foil and ripping. So you do want to get a couple of utensils. I like to have an old wooden spoon completely dedicated for making this. I have a knife simply just for scraping off the wooden spoon as it gets too thick. This is a plastic fork. It can bend a little bit when the wax gets too hot. So if you have a spare or old fork that's metal that you don't care about, you could use that as well. You're going to need to use an egg carton. This is an 18. You can use 12s or 18s. Either one, of course, is completely fine. The next item you will need are candles. Now, see how this candle is kind of burned out. It's coring. It's not doing too well. Someone probably got rid of this for that reason, and I source most of my candles at thrift stores and garage sales. Garage sales tend to be a little bit cheaper. The next thing you're going to need is some type of a wood shaving or a sawdust. Next up is dryer lint. Now, if you don't want to use wood shavings, you could solely use dryer lint or you could solely use wood shavings. Either one will work perfectly fine. I use a combination of both in mine that we will go over here in just a little bit. So another thing you are going to need is a dedicated melting pot. This is one that I just picked up at a thrift store, and I just keep all of my wax in here, and this is actually my mixing pot. This is where I will melt the wax, and then I will start mixing in some of the wood shavings, and I will show you that also coming up here in just a little bit. And lastly, one other item that you might need depending on what type of candles that you use. This is just one of my regular cook pots. It's not getting wax in it in any way, but what I do is take candles that come in these glass containers and I set them in there and I just let them slowly melt. You can see that's already melting in there. And then as this melts, I will dump it into my melting pot to use. So we have been letting these melt for about 15 minutes. You could see that one's getting fairly close. This one is a really large candle, so it's going to take a little bit. See how it's melting down in there? And then this one has completely melted. So now we're going to add our wood shavings to this. So over here in my can, I have my wood shavings. Now we do have to be careful when we add these because as you will see, I'm not sure what the reason is. Maybe if any of you out there are really into scientific type of stuff, you can tell me. But because these are completely dry, but you see how they foam? And if you add too much at one time, it will actually flow up and over the top of your pot. So I just kind of get some in there and I work it around. And what you want to do is make this a very thick slurry. And again, I was melting this on about 2 to 3, and now I have turned it down to low. Pot just a little bit closer. Just get these all mixed in until they're all nice and coated with the wax. And it doesn't have to be super, super thick because the excess wax will just fall off when you transfer it into the tray. But I'm going to add a little bit more and see how it's still foaming. I'll just get this all mixed in and then we'll move it over and I'll show you how we start filling our egg cartons. So over here I have my foil down on the counter. I have my wax paper over top of that. One other thing that I also do use that is one that is exclusively for this is a hot pad. So let's start putting these together. So we're going to put our egg cartons down on top of the foil and wax paper that we had there on the counter. We'll just start with 3. And I'm going to take the lint and just grab a small pinchful and put it into the bottom of each one of the holes on the egg carton. Now, one thing that I do is I keep this Ziploc bag that you can see here down in my laundry room. So every time myself or one of my kids gets done with their laundry, they are supposed to clean the lint and put it in the bag for me. So here we have all 3 of them with the lint in, and you can see just how small of an amount there is in the bottom there. And it doesn't really take up a whole lot of the room. Now here is our mixture, and we're going to take and scoop into each one of the slots on top of the lint. And you can see I just kind of press it down in there. And it can get kind of messy. I try to be very careful. But as we're doing this, I just kind of wanted to give you some ideas. If you don't have access to maybe the wood shavings or the egg cartons or maybe even candles, I have found that a lot of times on Facebook Marketplace, local areas will have like a buy nothing or a free group, and you can post in search of or ISO listings on there, and you could request some wood shavings or some egg cartons or even candles that people no longer want. I've actually done that before and had good success. I'm just giving you a close-up look here how I'm putting them in there and packing it so that it's snug. Now also, I tend to find that when I have an opportunity to go to garage sales, I find cheaper candles at the garage sales than I do anywhere else. I do go to thrift stores quite often. I have a daughter that really loves to thrift with me, and we search for candles, and sometimes I can find them there if they're having a sale and get a good deal on them. Other times I just feel like the thrift stores around here have gotten very bougie and they think they have like a little boutique and everything is almost the amount of retail. So just do your due diligence on that. But that is another good source for you to find items. That's where I've gotten my pots, some of my utensils, and again, the candles. So we are almost done here. I just like to make sure that I have them filled up just to the top of the little cup. They can overflow a little bit, but they actually work a little bit better when you are taking them apart in the end, just to have them filled up to that little spot. I'm just going to work on getting the rest of this in here, just so I have them all as even as possible. And then the next step that we're going to do is, remember that melting pot that I have sitting right there on the stove? That is where my extra wax has been sitting melting the whole time we have been working on this. Now what we're going to do is, the wax is in here that's melted. I'm going to put a wooden spoon on that chunk of candle so it doesn't come flying out. But you're just going to take and you're just going to gently pour a light amount of wax over the top of all of that. And what it does is it just kind of works its way down through the wood shaving mixture that you did and down into the lint to kind of bind it all together. So I'm going to get the rest of these filled up. All right, as I'm finishing up the last of the 3rd egg carton, I wanted to kind of just bring you back real quick and give you maybe a little bit of a different angle so you can kind of see how I'm packing them in there. And then also another angle on how I am pouring the wax. And if you're enjoying this content, if you wouldn't mind hitting that subscribe button, I would really appreciate it. I'm working really hard to hit my first 1,000 subs. Thanks. All right, and here is what they look like. We are just going to let them set here. You can see how the wax soaks down into the bottom and why it's important to have that protection between those and your countertop. But we're gonna let these just sit and get cooled, and then we'll come back and take a look at them. Okay, these have been sitting for a couple of hours, so they are ready to start taking apart. And all you simply do is just bend the egg carton and it will naturally break in between each one of the cups. So you can do this any direction. So I'm just going to rip these all into little individual cups. And then I will show you what we have when I'm done doing that. And here is our pile of all of them ripped into individual fire starters. I just simply use like a plastic produce bag that's left over from grocery shopping, and I will stack them all inside of here for storage. You could use a Rubbermaid tote, but I just find this is really easy and it's kind of flexible. So where I store them in my cabinet, it's really easy to get them in there. You can see how they look, and they don't fall out. That wax really glues them into the egg carton. Now all of these scraps that I have here, let me show you what I do with them. I just gathered them all up like this. And then this is a paper towel that I had just used to wipe my fingers on as I was working on the process. So I just have it spread out, and I will dump all of those loose shavings onto there because they are actually coated with wax as well. And I just wrap them up just into a little bit of a square like this. And then this actually in itself is its own fire starter, and because there's so many of the particles in there, it lasts pretty much just as long as one of the ones in the egg carton. So now let's do a burn test and see how long these last. It's a little windy out here today. All right, and let's see how long this burns.